Hi guys! I feel like I'm really high, like I'm really looking up, but it looks like a weird angle, but hey ho. I can't push my tripod further back because I've got stuff in the way, and I physically can't move any further back because I will crash into my bookshelves, which look somewhat different, you might think. A video should already be out, reorganising my bookshelf, if you want to watch that. Also, do you like my rose gold hair? I know I've missed some spaces, and it doesn't look too dissimilar from my pink hair before, but I tried something new, and the vlog of that should be up already, so check that out if you want to know how I got this. My hair does look really crazy at the moment. I feel like the Mad Hatter from Alice in Wonderland, but you know what? I'm digging with those vibes. I'm living for it. So today, as the title would suggest, I am here to review The Christmas Sisters by Sarah Morgan. So, first of all, I would like to say that the majority of this is going to be a non-spoiler, but I had some spoilery thoughts that I wanted to discuss a little bit. However, I didn't want to put it in my review, like my written review, so I thought, why not just make a video discussing those extra points for those of you that are interested. Perhaps you've read it already and you might have similar thought processes. I don't know. But this was a NetGalley read for me, so I got this as an e-arc. I think it was published, it's already out, I think it was published, oh apparently it was published the 25th of September, but I read somewhere that it was like November or something, but it's out already. So thank you very much to NetGalley for providing me an e-arc of this. Of course, opinions are 100% my own, as always. So let me just read you the synopsis of the story. So it says, all Suzanne McBride wants for Christmas is her 3 daughters happy and at home. But when sisters Possy, Hannah and Beth return to their family home in the Scottish Highlands, old tensions and buried secrets start bubbling to the surface. Suzanne is determined to create the perfect family Christmas, but the McBrides must all face the past and address some home truths before they can celebrate together. So it's like a sort of, I guess, family drama in that aspect, but let me get on to my review and then I'll let you know when it's time for spoilers, so you can go out of this video if you don't want to be spoiled for anything. So I ended up giving this a 4.5 out of 5 stars. I like to sort of preface these things by saying I don't do like the 7.5 point things because that confuses me, but on Goodreads you will see it as a 4-star because it, in my view, it's a lower 4.5 than a higher 4.5. If it was higher, you would see it as rounded up to 5 stars, if that makes sense. It makes sense in my mind, but I can understand how it would be confusing for other people. Anyway, I honestly did not expect to enjoy this book as much as possible. I was aiming for like an easy breezy Christmassy read, so I knew, you know, I was probably going to enjoy it and it's probably going to get me feeling festive, but I didn't know I'd get so emotionally invested in the story and the characters and just the lives of everybody involved in this book. I'd say it's like a nice soft contemporary, but we definitely have like this, it's not even an underlying subplot, it's more like the main plot, and that's dealing with the heavier topic of grief and how different individuals kind of react to that, and 25 years later, after a specific incident that has caused this grief, they're still realising that it has affected them into their adult lives and they didn't realise that. And it's interesting to see everybody sort of opening up and understanding each other a little bit more as they talk through the things that they never usually talk about. It does have a little bit of romance in, and I feel like for me personally some of the scenes were quite spicy and it had me giggling because I'm just, honestly, I'm immature like that. I will say I'm happy that the romance didn't take up like the majority, like it wasn't pushed to the surface of the story. That's not really what it was about. It was just nice to have that extra little side plot going on, so you can make the individual characters more believable, that they actually have other lives aside from the family as a whole. Do you know what I mean? Like they work as people on their own as well as a family, if that makes sense. You're gonna hear that a lot. Every time I review a book I say, if that makes sense, if that makes sense, because I always feel like I'm not expressing myself eloquently enough, so I do apologise. It's only until after I've edited, or if I've said it a few times in a sentence, that I realise that I keep saying it. I will try to calm down, I'm sorry. I will say I was rather confused, I'd say for the first third of the story possibly, just because I didn't quite understand. I feel like it was intentionally done that you didn't understand a lot of the history. It was quite murky. You were supposed to explore it and understand it as you read from different point of views and as they came together, but it left me feeling really confused. I don't like feeling confused in books. I don't like not knowing what's happening. to some degree, like if it's a mystery thriller, yeah, okay, and to some extent this kind of travelled into it, but I just felt really fuzzy and hazy. Like there were silly things, like I couldn't picture anybody's accents. Like I thought they were all Scottish to begin with and that they'd moved abroad or whatever, but I like to know like minute details like that so I can visualize it like in my head, I can see it happening. But it was a little bit halted for that first third. I wasn't too sure, but things came to be a little bit better after that, and after I got used to everyone's different voices, I kind of understood a little bit more about the backstory and all that, and obviously that opened up as the plot progressed. But yeah, I just wanted to mention that. We do follow sort of like 4 main point of views. So we've got Suzanne, we've got Hannah, Beth and Posse, which is a really interesting name. I've never heard that before, it's quite cool. Talking about Suzanne just briefly, her and Stuart, they're married, they're like mum and dad sort of thing. They are so in love, and honestly they were like couple goals. I just seeing them so in love with each other after how many years, like it was just so nice to see. Like they're really an inspiring duo. It was just lovely to see that, and also how they loved the kids. They're not kids, but how they loved the girls in this book as well. Like it was just so unconditional, and you can see so many different types of love in there. There's like overprotectiveness, there's romance, there's familial love. Like it's all so well expressed, I feel, and all quite personal to each different character, which was really nice as well. We kind of get like a full circle scenario where our first point of view is Suzanne, and our last point of view of the story is from Suzanne as well. So it's a nice like whole circle, and I feel like as she's the sort of, in my opinion, heart of the McBride family, it only makes sense to have her opening and closing their story. It was really nice. That being said, I will have to say that I think Posse was my most favourite character out of all of them. She just had, I don't know, I almost want to say that perhaps she had more chapters, but I think it was somewhat even. I don't know, I didn't really look into the details of that, but I just felt like I got to know her way more than the other characters. She was the most likeable perhaps. I feel like the other 2 sisters, Beth and Hannah, were a little bit more difficult to get on with, but by the end of that we did have more of an opening. I appreciated them way more by the end of the story. But I do think Posse has that special place in my heart. She has quite a few romantic scenes. One of them I was disappointed that we only saw the aftermath of, and the second one I was actually disappointed in her. It was more like intense. You kind of was there whilst things were happening, and I was like giggling throughout the whole thing. But I was disappointed because of the situation that it came off the back of. I just felt they'd recently had like this really intense argument, like things came out, truths came out, and it deeply upset Posse, which I understood to an extent, but it almost seemed like quickly after they were doing it, and I was like, well, what happened to all those emotions you literally just felt a couple of seconds ago? I can understand like feeling the understanding of forgiving someone and all that. Jumping into bed with them straight after, I was like, dude, at least give it a day. But maybe that's me. I think I just hold grudges, so I need to work on that. I've got to say, the way Sarah Morgan makes her characters look vulnerable was so amazingly done. I know that was such a weird sentence. Basically, there was a few times where I'm thinking of like Hannah in particular. They just stripped the character back and she was just raw and honest, and which was very strange for this character, as you'll understand if you read the book. And it just made her, in my mind, imagine her how she would have been as a child, and you do get kind of snippets of when they're discussing the past of what she was like as a child. So it was almost like going back, and she was just vulnerable and she was just being honest, and I just got to say well done to Sarah Morgan for being able to do that in such a beautiful way. And just, I don't know, I thought that was such a good skill to have, to be honest. There was like this double plot shock that I was not expecting. It really shook the table. I was not expecting it at all. It changed dynamics between characters. I liked how those were sort of talked through, but I just honestly, I thought that was such an awesome plot twist. I was not expecting it. Yeah, it added sort of the driving force for the rest of the plot, and how other characters ended up opening up, and how I feel like characters in general grew because of what happened then. So that was a really, again, well done sort of tool to use. Okay, so as for spoilers, I need to get my tablet now because I was writing those sort of in the notes of the book. So I'm going to just kind of read what I've written, because I sort of express things weirdly, and then if they don't make sense, I'll elaborate on what I mean. So apparently I've written here, this was on chapter 14. Strange that only recently the connection of Cheryl, Suzanne's best friend since being in care, was one of the kids' mothers, and now it's been made clear she's Posse's mum. I feel like we should have learnt more about what happened earlier on. So basically, obviously, you know, the plot revolves around the girl's birth mother and father died in a horrible cliff accident, obviously, like when they were climbing, and Suzanne was like the only survivor, so she sort of adopted the kids. And I appreciated that the background of Suzanne was also from care, so she had almost this really compelling desire to want to create a home for these children that had lost their parents through such a traumatic incident. That was really interesting, but I was very confused. In my mind, for some reason, I understood it to be that all the individual girls had different parents, and that Cheryl was one of Posse's mum. I don't know why I thought that. I didn't realise that they were all like biological sisters to one family, like Cheryl and Rob. I didn't get that for some reason. It confused me. And then when we saw that another couple was climbing as well, I assumed that they were all like individual. It was really weird. I don't know. That was one of the confusions that I mentioned earlier, that I was like, I don't understand the history. Do you know what I mean? So here as well, I've written something that I just wanted to think about it, but I don't know. It depends on your perspective. Also, because we have no backstory as to if the kids wanted to or not, I don't know if Suzanne made them call her mum. I can understand from like the two younger ones, they just kind of naturally adopted that term. But yeah, I said, like, they know what happened. They were all friends. Wouldn't she have just wanted to be their guardian? This is when I thought they weren't related, and not pushed to being called their mum. I mean, her own past has been touched on, and I get her need for family, but it sounds like she's pushed it on them, and Hannah doesn't even call her mum. But the rest, particularly Posse, gets offended by that. I don't know, just some thoughts. So there I was just discussing that I didn't understand if Suzanne was being pushy, because obviously we get this sense that she wants this family. She's overcompensating. She even says that throughout the book, that she's overcompensating because of the guilt, survivor's guilt that she feels, and just because she wants to, you know, do her best to have a family. And I didn't know if it was that kind of made her a little bit more pressurizing in them calling her mum, or if it was just a natural thing. I would have liked if that was explored a little bit more, because I don't know, that was just something that passed through my mind. And then we got to, I think it was in the same chapter perhaps, it just tells me the location of it, but it says, up until now I thought the girls all had different parents. I thought it was a group of friends that left orphaned children, and Suzanne decided to take them all in. Okay, this makes more sense that they all belong to one set of parents that something happened to. But yeah, please give me more clarity. I think maybe that was just me. I don't really know. I was just really confused. If you read this book, obviously, hopefully you would have read this if you're watching the spoilers. Please let me know if you were confused. If not, I'm clearly just an idiot. I don't know why I was thinking things I was thinking. So for that double twist at dinner, oh my god, right, so I didn't know what to think when they called out Luke for being a reporter. So I was so shocked when it turned out into a double twist of him just wanting information, because his parents were the other couple that died in the cliff climbing accident. That was such an amazing tactic. Like, I was really not expecting it, honestly. Up until Beth called him out for being a reporter, I wasn't even thinking anything was odd to begin with anyway. And then Hannah was like, yeah, he called me too. But the thing is that annoys me is, again, it's one of my pet peeves, miscommunication. Why couldn't he have just said to the girls, look, I'm the other couple's orphaned son, you know, I'd like to get in contact and talk. I'm worried about getting in contact with Suzanne because I don't know how she would take it. Could you, you know, hit me up, let me know how to go about this further, because I want to be as sensitive as possible. But no, he did come across as like a reporter trying to get a story, and then obviously Beth put two and two together because she catastrophizes, and she was like, you just wanted to, you know, sleep with my sister to get answers, to write your book. But it just turned out to be so much more, and I'm so happy with how, well, not happy that he lost his parents, but I'm happy with how the whole thing altered the course. Like, there was some hostility, and then it calmed down, and then it set the tone for people to be able to talk about the accident and what happened and how it left everybody traumatized, and that they didn't want to talk it. Like, Beth ended up being a really anxious person, overprotective of her children. Hannah ended up being overprotective of herself. Suzanne had survivor's guilt. I think Posse was maybe the only one that wasn't too, like, traumatized from it, because she was so young, so she didn't really know much about life before, do you know what I mean? But still, I guess she had a lot of anger at seeing her older sisters acting in the ways that they were because of that, but it wasn't understood as to why. Do you know what I mean? Until they all discussed it. I just thought that was absolutely amazing. But yeah, and then I've got this part here. It says not a spoiler, but I wanted to express, because I can't express it in writing clearly, so let's see what I said so that I can develop on it if need be. A random thought that I can't shake, but I think I would prefer if some characters, if they didn't come out with the exact thoughts and feelings that some of the other characters were thinking, that they were thinking shortly before. Like, that's a bit of reader's insight, and makes it a bit too easy for the plot, but frustrating that they didn't know this. Why can't the conversations be easier? So basically, say for example Beth and Posse was talking about Hannah, and they were saying, yeah, I just think she closed herself off because of this, this and this, and then in the next scene Hannah decides to be open and saying, yeah, I'm only doing this because this, this and this, and it was exactly what the other two were just talking about. Like, that annoyed me a little bit. Like, I could understand to some degree if she said it a little bit later on, like, oh, they were starting to understand, and then she's just kind of confirmed it in general conversation, but it just felt a bit too convenient, I think is the word I'm trying to say. It's almost too much of the power, like what a reader would know, but they somehow knew, even though apparently they couldn't communicate properly and their conversations were always difficult and they always jumped to conclusions. If they were thinking that what the other character was, you know, confessing, why couldn't they just talk about it instead of like expecting the worst? I hope that's explained it a little bit more. I think it explains it more than how I wrote it, so hopefully that makes sense. Right, that is it for my review on the spoilery part. But yeah, I just want to say overall this book was absolutely fantastic. Again, I wasn't expecting to enjoy it as much as I did, so that was an added bonus for sure. I also love that we followed this sort of Scottish Highland village and the sense of community that we had, albeit that the community sense sort of was used as more as a tool to set up the surroundings, because it wasn't as expressed and exposed as it was in the first half of the book. It more sort of focused on the family and the growth of the plot in the second half, so you didn't get many outside, like, external forces coming in. Like, you didn't really hear much about the shop and, you know, her knitting friends or whatever, do you know what I mean? But still, it was a really nice feel. The fact that we've got the backdrop on like a really cold Christmas in Scotland made me feel chilly inside reading it, so that was the best feeling ever, especially this time of year. I was like all cozy with my candles and that, reading it. It was so nice. I love that the characters grew. They weren't all likeable, but by the end I appreciated all of them. I loved seeing their character growth, and I don't know, I would actually really enjoy hearing more about them. I don't know if there's other books concerning this family, but I would happily read more about them. It also meant that I finished my first book in the 'Tis the Season-a-thon, which the vlog should hopefully already be up by now. I think it's the same one where I talk about my hair as well. So yeah, that was nice. I finished that on the Monday, which was the first day of the readathon, which was cool. And yeah, honestly, great book. Obviously I recommend it. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below, what you think about this book, and I will speak to you in another video soon. Oh, also, would you recommend any other stories? I don't read like adult fiction, contemporary that often, but when I do, you know, I tend to enjoy it. So would you recommend more of her books, and, you know, do they follow sort of family clusters like this one did as well? I'd love to know. Anyway, thanks again so much for watching, and I'll speak to you again soon. Bye.